Oh, there he goes.
What's up?
Man of the hour. How you doing, Coach?
It's all good, baby. How you doing?
Oh, I'm blessed, man. So, first of all, welcome. Thank you for making time to show up and bless us with your knowledge and your wisdom. So, for anybody that's new tapping in, we got people tuning in from different parts of the globe. Um, and as you see here, Queens that heals the world from Texas. She said she here for here for the people that's here to help us. So, um, without further ado, we can just jump right in. Coach, so tonight's topic is silent emotions and manhood. But before we go into that, I shared a little bit of your background, just a little bit, the titles that we acquired through our journey. But if you wanted to just give us a little bit about who is Coach Michael?
Well, first of all, man, I want to acknowledge you because I talk about stereotypes a lot. One of the stereotypes is brothers don't support each other.
Uh-oh.
And so when I called, when I tagged you and said, hey, man, I'd love to interview on my podcast, man, you jumped right in. You provided some amazing quality content for my viewers. And so I appreciate you coming on. But it's really about us supporting and empowering each other as Black men. So it is my absolute honor and privilege to be here with you, man. So again, thank you for what you're doing.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
Yeah, because we definitely we need more reasons for optimism in the world. We need solutions. We need healing. We need transformation. And so providing this platform is a great opportunity to do that. So for me, if I can go back a little bit just to kind of share how I got involved in all of this,
Yes, sir.
When I was 23 years old, I was living the American dream. I had the house, the wife, the 2.5 kids and all of that. And by society standards, I was pretty successful. And within about a 6-year time frame, that American dream turned into the American nightmare as I went through a divorce, bankruptcy, a foreclosure, a deep, deep state of depression. And I was actually homeless for 2 years living out of my car. And
Okay.
during the darkest period of my life, I received a miracle. I was sitting up late one night because I was too depressed to sleep. And I was sitting at the edge of my bed looking across the room at my bookshelf when I happened to notice every book on my bookshelf had something to do with getting rich or making money. Excuse me. And as I looked at those books, this question just popped in my head. Michael, what if you took all the energy and effort you've used in trying to get rich and simply figure out how to be happy? And it was that one simple question that literally changed and saved my life in an instant. Because when I asked myself that question, all of a sudden my depression lifted and I had amazing clarity that I was going to be able to rebuild my life and it was going to become extraordinary. So as a result of asking that question, I stopped reading books on getting rich and making money. I started reading books on psychology and spirituality and metaphysics and personal development. Went on this amazing journey of transformation. And so as a result of rebuilding my life, I said, I know there's got to be other brothers out there who have gone through the same thing. And so I decided that I would write a book to share the lessons that I had learned on my journey. And so back in 1995, actually, I wrote a book called Brothers, Are You Listening? A Success Guide for the New Millennium. And it was my attempt to empower Black men to get more engaged in this, what I'll call personal development space. And so again, this was back in 1995. And, I was talking about things like getting in touch with your emotions and healing and stuff back then, but brothers weren't open to it at the time, but now here I am some 25 years later, 9 books later, TV show, podcasts, radio and speaking. And now brothers are open. And I think brothers are ready for these types of conversations. So Michael Taylor.
Yeah. Well, first of all, thank you for breaking that down. Thank you for giving us a little backstory, the context of how you became who you are now, and still growing, and there's still so much more, right? And I think too, I just feel like back then, in the 90s, 95, we think 96, you said, society as a whole really wasn't in that space of talking about healing and some of these what used to be foreign methodologies of changing your life and doing this type of work. It was mostly just therapy, counselor. That's when just getting a therapist was a big deal, sitting on the couch and doing that type of work. So anybody that's just not tuning in, just drop in the comments where you're from, and also write down your questions if you have any. If anything pops up, we will be doing a Q&A. Thank you. So and feel free to put questions in the comments. This is just going to be an open dialogue where we're just going to have a deep conversation flow, share, our journey along the way. And so tonight, our topic is silent emotions and manhood. Now, if you are not a man, this still applies to the ladies, the queens in the space as well. Silent emotions. We all go through them, right? And where I would like to jump in, first of all, that question that you talked about, that you asked yourself, can you say that question one more time?
You mean the question when I asked about stop reading the books on getting rich and making money?
Yes, the question that question that you said changed your life. It lifted your depression.
So the question is, why not take all the energy and effort I use in trying to get rich and simply figure out how to be happy? Now, what's powerful about that question is that it challenged me for the first time to stop looking outside of myself, but looking within.
Yes.
I was driven by the externals, the house, the wife, the cars, and all of that. But I hadn't really began that inner journey, that inner transformational journey. So it was that question that started me on that journey.
Yeah, and I love your questions too, by the way. Because on our podcast, you hit me with some really powerful questions. So I love to have the opportunity to just dialogue in that way. And so now this will help us segue into the conversation of silent emotions and manhood. Now, one of our viewers shared, what happens is we have people that usually they focus on the problems a lot, right, in their conversations, and people don't really talk much about the solutions. So what we want to do is, because I know people are here for solutions, what we get to do is we can address and experience through this dialogue of silent emotions and manhood, and then we can provide solutions that have worked for us, things that we've seen work in our own lives. And if it applies to anybody that's watching, right, take note, but also don't stop there. Further investigate. Look at your story. How does this apply to me? Or how can I expand on this and probably take it to another level? Because sometimes we'll just hear something and we're like, okay, that's it, I got it. But each individual is unique in their own way, and each individual perceives things differently. So don't close yourself off, because you might hear something that me or Michael share and you could take it to the next level and run with it. So I just wanted to drop that into space first. So, Michael, as you started to go on this internal journey, can you speak to the whole silent emotions, like something that wasn't, I would just love to hear, because I know something had to be there while you were on this cusp of the financial freedom and being rich and successful.
Well, but see, here's the next question that really transformed my life. And that question is this: what does it mean to be a man?
Okay.
See, so think about that. So I had lived the American dream. I thought I had done everything a man was supposed to do to be happy. I was absolutely miserable. So the question became, obviously I don't know what it means to be a man, because what I did didn't work. So it was that question that really also propelled me to go on this journey where my primary area of expertise is the changing roles of manhood and masculinity in society. Most of my books are targeted specifically to men, to support them embracing what I'm calling a new paradigm of masculinity. So in asking that question, what does it mean to be a man? I came up with what I call the 5 illusions of manhood, okay? And the very first illusion is, to be a man, you must be non-emotional and disconnected. And this is the challenge that most men have, because we have bought into that illusion. We hear things like, feelings are for women. We don't want to talk about the inner reality, if you will. We don't want to talk about the F word, the feeling word. But I started asking myself that question about what it meant to be a man, I realized that as a man, one of the reasons why I was so unhappy was because I was disconnected from my emotions. And I was disconnected from my emotions as a result of a lot of childhood trauma. And so I had to be willing to look at and heal some of those childhood traumas in order to become free. And that's the journey I think we should all be on, which is searching for freedom, emotional freedom.
Yeah. So now that you have opened up the door to one of the first illusions of men is to not feel, not right, to be disconnected. And I love where you're going with this, right? And I want to look at, because I know sometimes there's this idea, right, that, or the story that the reason why I was raised this way, or I understood my father, why I was taught to not be express emotions and feelings because of the nature of his lifestyle. But then also a part that we don't really bring into is, I think too, is the times, right, of how things were back then in society. I want to take it back all to the point of some of the origin of, as black men, since we're talking about men of color, you know, from slavery, right? The way we had to endure certain levels of pain, certain levels of emotion based on being just owned by someone and having a certain agenda, not being able to talk, not being able to, you know, express that. And so how that over time carried over, how that was passed down, there was never really a space for men of color to ever express any type of desire or concern. We didn't have a voice, right? So when we look at the history, so we start looking at the backstory and looking at it now. So now that things have shifted, you know, to a degree, you know, and we still, as men of color, it's still a challenge to be able to just openly express yourself.
Yeah, but let's go back even further.
Okay.
Because here's what I believe. As men, since the caveman days, we were conditioned to believe that as a man, we had three primary responsibilities, what I call the 3 Ps: procreate, provide, and protect.
That's it.
That's it, right? So if you think about it, back then, you're in a cave, you're trying to take care of your family, you don't want to get eaten by saber-toothed tigers, so you have the survival mechanism. That's how we survived, by understanding those 3 rules. Now, as humanity evolved, we began to learn different ways of being and acting as men.
Yes.
But to your point, as black men, not only have we had the pressure of those 3 Ps, but if you think about it, we as black men, there was a time when we had to be really careful in expressing our emotions because it could ultimately end up us being killed. Why?
Yes.
Think about Emmett Till.
Yes.
Right? So those types of things which are so ingrained in the culture that as black men, we had to survive. So we created these mechanisms to survive. And one of those mechanisms was to withhold our emotions for fear of being lynched or attacked or whatever. So now as we move forward, again, I'm an optimist. That's the lens through which I see the world.
Yes.
As an optimist, what I'm seeing though is men are beginning to wake up.
Yes.
Now, why are men waking up? And it's not just black men. We're talking about masculinity in general.
Yes.
The reason men are waking up is because we don't have a choice. Why don't we have a choice? Because of what the women's movement did. When the women's movement kicked in, women said, look, I don't want to just stay home and be barefoot and pregnant. I want to go out and get a job. I want to go out and do these things. Now, in our society, for the first time in our country's history, did you know that there are more women in the workforce than men?
Yes.
And not only that, more women are graduating from college than men. So what that is saying is that the roles are simply changing.
Yeah.
And so in our community specifically, you know, Black women in terms of graduating from college and starting businesses, and I mean, Black women are lighting it up. So the question becomes, how can we as men adapt and change with the roles that are changing? Well,
Yeah.
we can no longer point fingers out there.
Yeah, right.
We have to look within and ask ourselves, are we willing to embrace some of these new roles of manhood and masculinity?
Yeah.
And if we're comfortable enough and courageous enough to embrace some of these new roles, one of those roles is being willing to get in touch with our feelings and not be afraid or ashamed of that. When we embrace those new roles, then we will start seeing a shift in our community, I believe.
Yeah. And so, and with those being said, right? Because there's what I know now, like even if you just if you scroll through, Instagram, there's all these beautiful memes and quotes that just tell you to just level up your life, shift your perspective, change your mindset. Like, and what you're saying, men get in touch with your inner self, right? But if I'm someone who has yet to even experience in my family lineage, in my household, a man that cries, a man that even addresses emotions in a healthy way. I was thinking about that when my post I shared today was, I don't recall growing up, not only being encouraged to tap into my emotions and feelings, I never seen anyone in my family dynamic even process emotions or feelings in a healthy way. And even the positive ones, right? Even some of the positive ones, it was like when they were happy, it wasn't like, oh, it was like, go get something to drink. I'm happy. Or, a lot of weed was being smoked, but it still wasn't in a healthy way. So for someone that may be tuned in or watching this later, right? Or someone that knows somebody that may have the desire to get in touch with their inner self, or they might not even know it's their inner child that needs love, that needs to be spoken to. Someone who's an author, someone who teaches it, someone who's a coach, someone who has been doing this work for quite some time, I look to you for the wisdom. So how would you present, because, like I said, there's always what's wrong and then do this, but how would you present to another man who is interested in looking at themselves for the first time and saying, hey, because it can be daunting, right? If I've been this way for 20 years, 30 years, and then you say, hey, brother, go stand in front of the mirror, right? And repeat these affirmations. Like, hold on, I don't even know if I like this person.
Right. But see,
right? Go ahead.
Here's one of the biggest challenges for us as a community. A lot of us are still holding on to this idea that this journey of inner self is something white people do. Because collectively, what have we always done if we were dealing with any issue? We go pray about it. We go to church. Well, see, that can be a deep form of denial. If we aren't willing to address and deal with our emotions, we cannot be transformed from the inside out. So one of the challenges that we have to do, especially as Black men and Black people in general, is to understand that this has nothing to do with ethnicity.
Yeah.
Healing your heart, getting in touch with your emotions is all about being human.
Yeah, yeah.
It's important to be in a context in which you feel safe and you're willing to speak openly and vulnerably about issues. So it's important to have people like yourself, Arjuna, who are creating a space that allows us to be heard and be seen. So the first thing, though, I think for all men, any person who's watching this, it's really about courage. It's really about being courageous enough to unpack your emotional baggage that you're carrying around. And we all have emotional baggage. Trust me.
Yes.
You don't have to go through some traumatic, abusive environment to carry baggage. So,
hey.
So
if you've been around since 2020, I'm just saying, that's enough right there.
Absolutely. And
keep going.
And I'm glad you bring it up, because here's something that we don't talk about as Black men when we start talking about baggage. And I have to bring up the Philando Castile story.
Yeah.
Because when Philando was killed, it broke my heart in a different way. I mean, we've all seen, the senseless acts of violence towards Black men forever. Right? But for me, there was something about watching that video that broke my heart in a way that I'm an optimistic guy. I've got a great support system. I'm able to process my feelings, right? But when it happened, for about 3 days, it was as if this dark cloud was over my head, and I couldn't shake it. I couldn't move past the sadness, right, of seeing that. And so, fortunately, as mentioned, I have a support network, and me and a bunch of brothers, we have a group. There's 4 of us, and we've been meeting for 15 years. And I say, guys, look, we need to circle up is the term we use. We need to circle up because I just needed to process the feelings of sadness that were so deep, right? So my buddies and I, we got together, and I said, man, I got to talk about this Philando thing. I got to get that. So my brothers, who were very, very supportive, they allowed me just to get in touch with and express that deep sadness that I was feeling. Now, how many of us as Black men have those types of resources that allow us to address and deal with that emotional trauma that we see on a regular basis?
Right.
How many of us have the resources, and not only that, how many of us have the courage to openly talk about the feelings that we're dealing with? Right. And the reason a lot of us can't and don't do that is, again, cultural conditioning. As men, that first illusion. As a man, I'm supposed to be tough. I'm supposed to suck it up, man up, and not deal with it. But see, that's killing us. That's literally killing us. So as men, we've got to create those spaces where we are comfortable enough to speak openly about what's going on inside of us.
Well, so if anybody's tuning in, I'm going to recap basically what Michael was saying. As men, in this specific conversation that we're having right now, we're talking about men of color, but as men as a whole, being able to address first, right? What I'm hearing you say is being able to address what's coming up, the feeling or the emotion. Second, after you address it, having a place to express what that feeling or emotion is. And then third, being able to process it. So address, express, process, right?
Yes.
Something, and because now what that does is it dispels the silent emotions, right? Because we're given solutions here. That's the thing, is to talk about the solutions, opportunities, or possibilities. So from the narrative of silent emotions, you get to find a way or create a space to address, express, and then process, right, these emotions. And something that I also wanted to share to what you were saying, Michael, that I think is very powerful that can go with that is, in order for me on my journey to even start looking at all the traumas and the stories and the things that I had endured, the first thing I had to do was say, hey, Arjuna, you're a pretty epic dude right where you are, without knowing any tools, right? Without having any understanding of what I'm getting ready to dive into. Because I think what happens is, what I've noticed in the work that I do in a lot of the spaces I get to share, is that I'm talking to people and individuals, men, children, and all. I get to work with, police, teachers, children, young adults, people that are in the judicial system. And the one thing that comes up common across the board is, I don't like who I am currently, right? So if you don't like, so just think about if you don't like a person. That's not, if you don't like a person, do you care to talk to that person, right? Do you care to address that person? No. Do you care to express anything to that person? No. For what? I don't like you. And so we know you ain't processing nothing. So when you take it back now to the internal, when we point back at self, it's the same principle has to apply. In order for you to be able to address yourself, to express yourself and process, you have to figure out how can you be okay with who you are in this current moment.
Yeah,
right.
Absolutely.
How can you be okay with the being that you are in this present moment? Because for me, that's where the work starts. If I don't even like me, I can't even get to the level that you're speaking. That's too advanced.
Right. Well, you know, a great exercise for anybody. I don't care where you are.
Okay, let's talk about it.
You know, is the simple mirror technique. Is to simply go to a mirror, look at that person in the mirror, see that person in the mirror, and simply ask yourself, do you love that person in the mirror?
Right.
And just allow yourself to process what goes on when you say that or when you think that idea. So when you look in the mirror, what do you see? Now, when I first started that process, when I was just beginning this process, I remember looking in the mirror, and one of my defense mechanisms was to always smile. I always had this fake artificial, everything's great, right? So I remember the first time I did this, matter of fact, the therapist suggested that I do this. And she said, Michael, just go in the mirror and ask yourself, do you love that person you see in the mirror? Well, when I did that, I said, yeah, I love myself, you know? Not at all. I had to be willing to uncover a lot of that trauma and pain that I had been holding on for a very, very long time. But just noticing, because it's all about awareness. It's about us having the awareness of who we are and what's going on inside of us. So as I started doing this mirror process, which was a process that I had to do over and over again until I got comfortable, but I got to a point where I started to recognize that, okay, I'm really not okay with that guy in the middle. I mean, in the mirror. Why am I not okay with that guy in the mirror? Well, for me, there was a lot of deep-rooted shame that I had never addressed.
Right.
And so I had to be willing to address that shame so I could move that shame out of the way so that I can look in the mirror and say, you know what? I love that guy.
Yeah.
I love that guy. But it's a process. So we have to be willing to go through that process so that we come to self-love, because it is the core of our happiness. If we can't love ourselves, we can never love someone else.
And I I love that you brought up the term self-love. Love in general. I know for me, I used to be so triggered when someone would tell me, and my mother always had the self-love, self-help books. Oh, love yourself. You got to love yourself, Arjuna. And I'm like, Mom, where in the hell in our family dynamics are we seeing self-love? I don't see anyone behaving like they love themselves, right? And I was sexually abused as a little boy. So for me, when you said back then, when you said love or love yourself, my association with love was betrayal. My association with love was defiant. I was like, no. So sometimes I'm mindful that when I use that term, love yourself or self-love, that doesn't mean the same thing to everybody that hears it, especially when I was doing my work with men that were incarcerated, right? Because their connection to love was usually the people that hurt them, betrayed them, scarred them, because that was what they were saying. Oh, I am doing this out of love. I only treated you that way because I loved you. That was my mother saying, I only beat the out of you because
right.
I loved you. I cared. So I just wanted to put that into the space because I know that everybody doesn't hear the term love or self-love in the same way. If you want to speak to that, something coming up for you, share, please.
Yeah, because here's another way to look at or think about self-love.
Okay.
Because I'm a firm believer in science and understanding, and I'm a huge fan of Albert Einstein.
Okay.
And Albert Einstein said this. He said, everything is energy. That's just the way that it is. He said, match the frequency of the reality that you want to create, and there's no way you can't create that reality. It can be no other way. And then he said this. He says, this isn't philosophy. is physics. So he was saying there's a science to this.
Mm-hmm.
Take that idea, everything is energy.
Okay.
Are you familiar with Eckhart Tolle?
Yes. The
Yes.
Power of Now.
Yes. Eckhart Tolle wrote an amazing book called The Power of Now. But Eckhart Tolle says that as human beings, we have what he calls a pain body.
Mm.
Our pain body is the energetic body that every human being has. We have this energetic aspect of who we are as human beings. And so when we're kids and we experience a lot of trauma and pain and we don't know how to release it, it stays trapped in our pain body, as
Yes.
I would say. So self-love is the process through which we let go of all the negative energy and trauma that we've been carrying around. Because if we still have that negative energy trapped inside of us, it's going to impact everything that we do.
Yes.
So from a scientific perspective, what we have to think about is, do I still have within me a lot of negative energy in my pain body?
Yeah.
So for example, we've all seen people that are easily triggered by the slightest provocation. They're just pissed off at everything. They're just angry, right? Well, that's the result of a pain body filled with negative emotion.
Mm.
So if we can get that person to heal and let go of that negative emotion, he won't be triggered as often because the negative emotion is what's causing him to be triggered. So self-love is a process through which we heal and release all that negative energy. Now, there's a lot of people that believe that you can bypass the pain and go straight to an intellectual understanding of trauma and not heal from it.
Yeah.
So I don't adhere to that philosophy. I personally believe you got to be willing to go through the pain. You've got to be willing to let it go. That's the process of releasing the pain from the pain body. And you can't do it intellectually.
Yeah.
You can't understand it. You got to feel it. You got to feel it to release it. Now, are you familiar with that poem that or that thing that Iyanla Vanzant wrote about healing the wounds of your past? You probably read it.
I could have, but I don't. Not off the top of my head, I don't recall it.
Let me read it real quick, because this.
Oh, please.
This specifically to what we're talking about, and it says, "Until you heal the wounds of your past, you are going to bleed. You can bandage the bleeding with food, with work, with alcohol, with drugs, with cigarettes, with sex, but eventually it will all ooze through and stain your life. You must find the strength to open the wounds, stick your hands inside, pull out the core of the pain that is holding you in your past and the memories, and make peace with them." Now, my interpretation of that is when we stick our hands in to pull out that pain in the wound, that's removing that negative energy from the pain body.
Yes.
When we remove that negative energy from the pain body, we become free. When we become free, we experience self-love.
So I love how you brought it back to that. And, you know, something that you touched on that really spoke to me in this moment is reaching inside, being able to reach inside. And there's a book, just for anybody that may want to know deeper about this pain body, there's another book that expresses this whole context called The Body Keeps Score. I don't know if you've ever read that book. It's a powerful book, too. It talks about the trauma body. It talks about the difference between PTSD and trauma. And it really breaks down because a lot of people have the understanding that trauma is the experience that happened to you. No, trauma is the experience that happens to the body.
Yes.
From the experience. So for me, being molested, or one point in my life, or being shot, right? Most people will think, oh, being shot was the trauma experience, the traumatic experience, but it was actually what happened to the body from being shot, what it did to me, right? And so what I learned from that injury, from sustaining the gunshot wound, was my body, the scars from the surgeries started healing, but they started healing in a way that didn't look right. So I went back to the doctor. They started doing all these tests, blood tests, bone marrow tests, couldn't find anything. They were like, nothing's coming up. We don't understand why your body's working this way. So like you, love science, I started geeking out. Let me start researching. And what I learned was that all of the experiences that I was having, and then that's when I discovered years ago the great work of Louise Hay, right? The emotions. It was the experience, the trauma that was trapped in my body from being shot, the experience, right, that I had went through was still trapped in my cells. It was still trapped inside of me, even though they stitched me up, took the, did everything. And so a lot of times we're carrying, like you said, some of us are going through certain things in our body, physical pains that you might get a crook or an ache or a cramp. And you may think it's something totally, or you may not even know what's happening to you. And I just wanted to put this out here because this is something that you can take note of. If you have not heard of Louise Hay, or if you don't know anything about her work, just go online and research the book, You Can Heal Your Life. And she has a whole section for common ailments that happen in our body, but how they're connected to our emotions. And I thought at first, here goes another one of those woo-wee, like out there, like, oh. But then when I really start diving into the work and start addressing those emotions, going inside and pulling them out, I noticed my whole body started to shift. My healing process started, and that's how I was able to start walking again. Because I was paralyzed after being shot for a year. So I had to learn how to talk, and not just from researching, literally language, using my voice, throat chakra, speaking into my life, speaking into my body, speaking into my leg, claiming, right? Affirming that I love my leg, affirming that my leg is healed, affirming that experience has no longer taken hold of me, right? And I know sometimes, and see, as men, this is something that we hear this and we're like, if you hear a group of men talking like this, I don't care what color you are, you hear a group of men talking like this, it's like, hey, I'm gonna go watch the game.
Right.
Let me go talk to myself. But I just want to say, because as a man, breaking those stereotypes, these are some of the tools and practices that help not only change my life, but save my life.
Well, yeah, and Arjuna, I gotta speak to Louise Hay in her work, in her book, You Can Heal Your Life, because when I read her book, I was in the middle of my process, if you will, and in her book, she was talking about people who are incapable or unwilling to express anger in a healthy way.
Yeah,
it affects their throat, their voice.
Yes.
See, most of my life, I had a real difficult time expressing anger because in my mind as a kid, I made a decision that anger was bad. Anger was wrong. So I would stuff and repress my feelings of anger. And I used to have all sorts of throat problems, sore throats, tonsillitis, all sorts. But when I read her book, and like yourself, I started doing affirmations and I started allowing myself to express my anger, all my throat issues went away.
Yeah.
Literally went away.
Yeah.
So there's a major connection between how we feel, what we think, and what we say. And
what we end up doing.
Exactly.
So just from perspective of men, the silent emotions, right? The things that we don't, and I love that you brought up energy. That's what I wanted to go back to, the energy point. Because something that we do as men, for most men that I've always been around my whole life, is that we don't share certain feelings, certain emotions, right? We don't share them. But at the same time, we're sharing the energy all day long, right? And that's the piece that I really wanted to lean in before we go into some Q&A. Because there's a part of us that think, because if I don't say anything, I can get away with it. Or if I don't say anything, I can I don't have to be put on the spot. I don't have to address it. I don't have to really focus on this right now. But some of us are so deep into the thought of these emotions and feelings, even though we're not saying anything energetically, that meets the space, right? That energy meets the space before you do. So if you're in a relationship, you talked about the wife, right? Sure, Michael, you can tell us about a time where you probably felt a certain way, had a certain emotion, didn't say anything, but as soon as you came in front of wifey, the wife's energetic field, she saw you, she was able to, Michael, is there something, right? When we get addressed by our partner with that, is there something you need to talk about? Is there something? And as men, what do? No, I'm good. But
yeah, here's a great lesson though that I learned. After my divorce, I had a really difficult time creating relationships. And
okay.
There was this amazing pattern that I noticed, that my relationships would last 3, maybe 4 weeks tops. And then the women were all saying the same thing as they left. They would say, I care too much about you to stay in this relationship. Now, how much sense does that make, right? You care about me, but you're leaving. But then they would say this, the reason that I'm leaving is because you're emotionally unavailable. Now, at the beginning, what did I do? I pointed my finger at the women. I said, hey, it's your loss. You leave, no problem. But see, there's a point where we have these amazing epiphanies. And for me, it happened because I was having a conversation with a female friend of mine, and I was having somewhat of a pity party. And I said, you women always talk about you want a good man, and I'm a good man, and why y'all keep leaving? And she said this, Arjuna. She says, Michael, if one person calls you a jackass, you probably shouldn't worry about it. But if 2 or more do, you might want to get a saddle. And she said, have you not noticed that you're the only common denominator in all of your relationships? Now, when she said that, I had a light bulb moment. Because what I recognized was all the women were saying the same thing. I was emotionally unavailable.
Yes.
Which I had no idea what the hell that meant.
Yeah.
But I realized in that moment that I needed to fix that, whatever it was.
Yeah.
That's when I went on that healing journey, man, to become emotionally available in relationships.
Yeah. I used to have a PhD in emotionally unavailable. I had a master's. I went into my PhD. I had a doctorate in it. So trust, I know exactly that space. And so if anybody that's still here tuning in, thank you for riding this journey out with us and listening. And we also, at this time, I would love to open it up to some Q&A. If there's any questions, anyone that wants to ask us any questions regarding what you've heard or what we've shared, or just maybe think we may have an answer, please drop it in the comments. We'll continue the dialogue, but we want to open this up for Q&A because I know some people are asking about solutions. Michael is a great author. He has books, so he's well-knowledged. While he's here, let's take advantage of his wisdom, his time, since he's offering it to us in this way. So please, in the comments, ask any questions. If anything comes through, I'll read it if you see it. But
I'm looking at some comments and putting it in my face. Putting it in your face. 305 says I'm very short-tempered, but I'm working on it and getting better. So I want to acknowledge him for whoever that is, to say at least they have the awareness that they're short-tempered and they're working on it, and that's the process. Working on it, becoming better, learning to do that. So that's great.
Yeah, because I feel like for me, awareness is like the first. That's empowerment. Just to be, because if you don't know, then there's how do you even take action? Yeah. So that's a beautiful. Thank you for acknowledging. That's putting it. Yes, for sharing that.
But here's else I want to throw out, Arjuna.
Yeah.
So for everyone who's listening, I want you to grasp this idea. This is a very empowering idea, and the idea is we always make the best possible choice for ourselves in that moment based on our limited amount of understanding.
Ooh.
Hear that again. We make the best possible choice for ourselves in that moment based on our limited amount of understanding. So if we aren't happy with the results that we're getting, we have to expand our understanding.
Yes.
Because if you knew better, you would have done better. So what we have to be willing to do, get back to that self-love piece, understand that we're not perfect.
Yes.
But we have to understand that where we are, wherever we are, if we don't like where we are, the only way we can get out of that place is to increase our understanding. Increase our understanding of ourselves and how we're relating to the world. So just want to throw it out.
Origin Forces says self-forgiveness too. Yes, so there's self-forgiveness. There's what I call self-empathy as well. You know, that's another powerful term we don't really use a lot, is self-empathy, because we can empathize with someone else, but then being able to come into the situation with trying to understand self. And the human part, though, just the human being, I think for me, what I learned is giving me a lot of freedom, Michael, is that we do get caught up into the titles and I'm a man or I'm a father or I'm this. But just one thing that has helped me lighten that load to empty out the pain body department, because it'll fill back up. It's just over time it fills back up. But to keep emptying it out and processing, something that I just addressed myself was, Arjuna, also you're a human being, right? Sometimes looking at it as a black man or a father, all you do, whatever the thing is, that could be a little challenging at times. So sometimes I try to set myself up, not sometimes, for the most part, I always try to set myself up to win. So if I'm going to address something, if I'm going to go and do the work, I was like, what's the best way that you could set yourself up to win, Arjuna? And what I mean by win is not necessarily you heal that moment in that moment, but to just be able to receive and embrace myself in a way where I can look at it from a place of self-love. And so it's like, hey, you're a human being.
Right.
So with that being said, I'm not alone. I know I'm not the only person that's going through this, because when we're going through something, Michael, right, it feels like you're the only person has ever had this catastrophic, devastating, ridiculous challenge. Like we'll put a stack of shit on top of it just to how we talk to ourselves. So how can we, so for one of my tips would be just looking at how can you set yourself up to go into this internal journey, this dialogue, right? And so silent emotions and knowing, you know, for us men who are still working on that, being silent about how we feel, I just want you to think about, you're silent now, but if you were to be expressive, if you were able to figure out how to speak it, right? Have you ever considered the possibilities of what's on the other side, right? So if I'm feeling a certain way and I'm talking to Michael, hey, Michael, I've been carrying this certain emotion, anger, or I just feel sadness. I said it for the first time. Just by sharing that, already there's going to be, you will feel some shift in your energetic body.
Absolutely.
In your emotional body. And then from there, now Michael gets to hear that, right? And someone with his level of experience, he'll mirror back and say, well, hey, he will walk me through a process. He will open up the door for me to start, like you said, if you know better, you do better. So now now I'm giving Michael the opportunity to hear me, but also open up my mind to a deeper understanding and more possibilities, which allows me now to do the work. Because sometimes what it is being silent. We're only in our own head, and when you're in that state, usually it triggers what we like to call the sympathetic nervous system, fight, flight, or survival. In that state, the cognitive behavior mechanisms are not accessible because the body is trying to do one of those three things, right? The body is trying to either fight it, get out of there, or survive. And so in those three different states of awareness and being, the conflict resolution, the self-love, all that right now, it's not even available to you.
Mm-hmm.
it's way more challenging to try to sort through and navigate healing and self-love in that state. So in trauma-informed work that they teach you is how do you put yourself in what they call the resiliency zone. So to give you an idea of what the resiliency zone would be, if you see how my screen is stacked over Michael's screen, but in between there's a line, that's would be the resiliency zone where you're not way up here in the clouds and then you're not so far down, but you're in a place where it's like equal. You're like, okay, I can work with this. Or you're at least in a place to look at the information or look at the situation and process. So again, if you're someone that's tuning in or you're here, if you have a question for myself or Michael about anything we've shared, good to see you, Ben. Good to see you.
And Arjuna, let me throw this out there too, because
Go ahead.
especially for men, without question, the three most difficult words for any man to say is "I need."
Yes.
I need help. So first and foremost, let's remove the negative stigma that's around saying I need help.
I need help.
Saying that you need help or being willing to say you need help is the greatest show of strength you will ever exhibit. So
yeah,
if you're unwilling to say those three words, and it's not just a matter of just saying the words out loud, but just being willing to acknowledge to yourself that you can't do it by yourself.
Yeah.
See, because I know as men, what we'll rationalize is, as Arjuna was talking earlier, is that we'll rationalize in our head that nobody's going to understand our pain. No one's going to understand. You know, you're not going to be able to relate to me. You know, we have all these conversations in our head, but the truth is, the very first step is what I call surrender. Surrender simply means that you recognize that you can't do it by yourself.
Yeah.
And if you're in the 12-step program, you know, they say surrender to a higher power. You know, but it's really a matter of saying, I can't do this by myself anymore.
Yeah.
I've got to have some support. I've got to have some other people that can support and empower me. Now, there's a guy named John Bradshaw who unfortunately passed away a few years ago. And I did a workshop with him called Healing Your Inner Child. But he said something I thought that was so profound. He says, because the only way you'll heal is by creating what he called an interpersonal bridge with another human being.
Ooh.
So it is, as you were mentioning early, when I can share my pain authentically and I can have another person not try to fix it, but just be there and support me and create a space for me just to share.
Yeah.
That's where transformation happens. Yeah. So creating that space and being willing to share, that's when you transform. That's when you grow. And that's what you want. That's the goal. That should be the ultimate goal.
Yeah, I like to call it a sounding board. Just being able to say, you know, thank you, my brother. I don't know if he's still in here, but Wild Benjamin, beautiful brother. You know, we had a deep dialogue. I met him a few years back around these same conversations, and it's just amazing. You know, when you open up, like what we realize, and I just want to say this to any men or anyone that's, but particularly to the men, but anybody that's watching and listening, is that when you open up and begin to, the three things that you shared earlier, address, express, and process. The other magical piece to that, to me, is that when you start to do that, you realize in that moment too that what you have created to be such a monster isn't really as frightening. It isn't as catastrophic as it may appear to be once you start to express it, once you hear yourself release it, right? And so in the permission of giving yourself to say, I need help, right? As a matter of fact, let's just try something for the sake of we're being here. And it could be anything. It doesn't even have to be something emotional, something big. Just type in the comment, I need help. I'll go first. Just sit with what does that feel like? What is it you know, and just be with it, right? Just put it in the comment, I need help. And just see and read it. Read it back to yourself, right?
And know that it is absolutely okay.
Yeah.
Put it out there. Because by putting it out there, you begin to release that energy, that negative that you've been trapped in. Because there's two things that'll cause a person to want to change. One is pain, and the other is what I call divine discontent, which is just that inner feeling, that inner knowing that something's just not right. And we've all had experience where we just intuitively know that our lives could be better, that relationships could be better, that I could be making more money, whatever. We just intuitively know something's off. Well, when we allow ourselves to say, I need help, we start moving toward the things that we intuitively know we're capable of. Yeah. Because it's just, it's in us. So no matter what challenge you may be dealing with right now, recognize and understand that you have something in you that can support you in moving through that challenge. Yeah. But you can't do it by yourself. So you've got to have support.
And just by saying I need help, right? And now we get to play with the magic of it. So Origin Forces says I need help. And so now, just from that, putting it out there, what happens is the universe will turn around and say, what do you need help with? Right? Mm-hmm. This is the beauty in real time. Like, you ask. So we speak up. We use our voice. Well, right now we're using text. But same thing. I need help. So Origin Forces, if you're open to go the next step, would say, well, what do you need help with? And that could be anything. It could be anything. But just to show how fast these techniques work when we actually trust them, when we actually give ourselves permission. Because there's one thing to know that you need it, or to just know that you're not happy with where you are, but to never take action, right? To stay silent. You know, what that does to you, what that feels like in the physical body. And it may not seem like nothing, but energetically, you know, it is actually a lot of weight. And, you know, sometimes we think going to the gym is where you actually lift a heavy load. But no, you can literally energetically carry problem after problem after problem, circumstance after circumstance after circumstance.
And it's heavy.
And look, I'm going to give us all a disclaimer. Starting from, let's just start from 2020 to now. There's enough that all of us are carrying from 20. So if you factor in your childhood, your teenage years, your young adult years, college, you know, whatever you did, your first relationship to, man, right? Just sitting with it, just wow. So it's almost like it behooves you, right? It behooves you to take a step towards that window where you can see the sunlight, where you can see, versus take a step back and go back into that dark room. Because that's what silent emotions actually feel like. It's like you're in a dark room. You know, I'll tell you a quick little story to help me too. When I was incarcerated, Michael, and if any, like I get Q&A, I see some of the brothers are jumping on right now. Q&A though, around silent emotions, even if you're just not jumping in, tuning in, and you missed some of what we talked about, and you want to jump right in right now, just the topic is silent emotions and manhood. If something comes up for you right now, please drop it in the comments, ask the question. Myself and Michael will do our best to just address it from our own personal experience. Michael is an author. He's been doing this work for quite some time. You can give them the extent of how long. I've been around professionally for the past, let's say, decade, but I've been on Michael's podcast, spoken with Michael. He has a plethora and deep rooted access to wisdom and experience. So if you're someone who is on this path, new to this path, curious about this path, and just trying to figure it out, please use this time to ask us questions, to conversate, to connect, because it's all about, we're here for each other, right? You know, because I can call Michael and do this on the phone.
Absolutely.
But we know that there's silence out in the exteriors.
Yeah. And so let's talk about what drives the silence. What drives the silence is fear. See, because we're so afraid that if we put ourselves out there, maybe we'll get hurt, maybe we'll get rejected, or maybe nobody will understand me. So there's this conversation that we begin having with ourselves that we're not going to say anything. I just, you know, why risk? Why go out there and put myself out there? Risk being hurt, you know, risk being rejected, as mentioned. But it's really about gaining the courage to move through the fear. Because 90% of the things that we're afraid of and we think are going to happen never ever happen. It's just a that we have in our heads that we convince ourselves or we talk ourselves out of the things that we really want to do. And so it's really about being willing to get out of your comfort zone. Yeah. Because getting out of your comfort zone is where the magic happens. And so if it doesn't challenge you, it can't change you. So getting out of your comfort zone is about challenging yourself to move to the next level, to move to that next stage in your growth and development. And that's the goal. You want to constantly, you must commit to constant and never-ending improvement. That's the goal. Enlightenment is a process. Enlightenment isn't just about climbing up the side of a mountain, getting to the top, and becoming enlightened. Enlightened is about climbing up the mountain, no matter how difficult it is, getting to the top, but then coming back down, grabbing somebody else, and walking back up the mountain with them. Yeah. That's enlightenment. And every time you go down and come back up, you're going to learn something new about that climb. You're going to learn something new about that mountain, and you're going to learn something new about yourself. And you get stronger. Yes. So there's so many things that happen. And so again, if you're here and you're watching, I need help is one of the first things that we wanted to talk about as far as men. Being okay, asking I need help to become the norm. It becoming something that's safe. Actually, let's even go further. That is a form of self-help and self-love. Absolutely. You know, if we want to get into that, asking for help is a form of self-care. It is a form of self-respect, self-dignity, self-worth. Like, we can put all types of beautiful bells and whistles on it, but just being able to say, hey, I need help, right? Because what does it, if you get to ask yourself, what benefits do you end up with staying stuck? What benefits do you end up with staying trapped, right? Or stuck or silent? You get to start asking yourself, I've been doing this part, the silence, for how long, right? Some of us have been doing the silent game for almost our entire life. So at some point, if you've noticed for forever long that being silent has not yet released me, it has not yet made my business grow, it has not yet helped my bank account, it has not yet strengthened my relationship with my wife or my girlfriend or my children or the people around me, so at some point you get to say, hey, you know what? You know, and this is a question that I had myself. Well, I was going to say when I was incarcerated. You know, I was locked up, Michael, and I asked myself, I said, well, Arjuna, you've been doing all this other stuff all the way up until this point, and look where you are. So obviously, there was like this common sense light went off. Obviously, brother, that shit ain't working out. It behooves you to at least implement this forward momentum thinking, this elevated thinking, right? It was like, just give it a shot. Yeah, well, you remember the saying, if you keep thinking you're doing the same thing over and over and again, you're going to get a different result. That's the definition of insanity. So we don't want to be insane. We want to be elevated. And so what I want to share is that, you know, as a speaker, as a writer, you see the other side. You see me having moved through. But at the same time, I have to be willing to, number one, first of all, say, I need help. In saying that, I gained the courage to go to therapy. Therapy opened the door to my transformation. As a result of going to therapy, I started reading self-help books. I started going to these seminars. I went on this amazing journey of transformation to change myself from the inside out. So if you're watching this right now, recognize that no matter where you are, there's another side. The other side is amazing. You can get there. It's possible for you. I've been blissfully married for the past 19 years. I do what I absolutely love to do. But the process of getting me to that point was not easy.
Yeah.
So it's not easy, but it's doable. It's absolutely doable. And it begins with you simply making a choice.
Yeah.
And that choice is that you're ready to grow and transform. And that's what these types of conversations are designed to do. Support you in growing and transforming.
Yeah. And, you know, if I had to just boil all my story, my journey down to just a pivotal moment, it was simply saying, can you help me with this?
Mm-hmm.
Right? Someone mirrored back that I had all this potential. And for once, I truthfully was like, well, because usually it's like, oh, well, yeah, you got this potential. You run with that. Like, oh, yeah, I got this potential. But I never had addressed what was blocking and stopping that potential. For the first time, Michael, 20 years ago, when the person mirrored back to me all this great potential that I had, I said to the person in that moment, well, will you help me tap into it?
Yeah.
And just from saying that, the person was like, okay, are you serious? I said, no, I'm dead serious. I'm like, I've already died once. I'm like, look, I'm back, so I gotta take it serious. And so that person said, well, I'll meet you back here tomorrow morning, pack a light lunch, and didn't tell me where they were taking me. Said, I'll meet you back here, pack a light lunch.
Wow.
And guess who it was? It was crazy. It was the branch manager of the bank that I was banking at. And she knew I didn't have a job. And she was like, who? But because I was doing certain things a certain way, she was like, you got some sense. But at the same time, I know you ain't working. So anyway, she saw the potential. Told me, I'll meet you back the next day, pack a light lunch, and said, be sincere, be ready. And so just from asking, will you help me? She took me to the University of Phoenix college campus where she had a friend that worked in financial aid. She went to the back, whispered something to her. They called me in the back. Next thing you know, they got a whole screen pulled up, sat me down, was like, hey, I'm signing you up for the master's program, accelerated. You can start off on campus and we can do the rest online. And I promise you, Michael, I never looked back. Got my master's degree, created worked with all types of nonprofit, all of that, from being shot, jail, thought my life was a complete mess, just from saying those 3 words. I need help. Well, mine was, will you help me? But
yeah,
changed my life forever. So, you know, any man that's watching this, particularly men of color, we have to get out of the code. If I share my feelings, if I share my emotions, I am no longer considered a powerful man, right? Because if we had to be honest and we're watching, if you really pay attention to the way we are showing up as men right now, yes, there is a rise. There is an awakening. Yes, there are a lot of black men changing the narrative, but there are also a lot of young black men that aren't, that are still trying to hold on to that old narrative that we are trying to deliver ourselves from, right? that we are still trying to deliver ourselves from. And there's a lot of young men that need to see us, the elders, the older men now that have a little salt and pepper in the beards, doing these types of dialogues. They need to see more of this online. They need to be able to click and find these types of conversations that are being removed. So there isn't spaces for this. So, you know, when you work for yourself and help self, you get to help so many.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Help so many. And so, and if you're not a man, if you're just someone in general, a human being, we'll speak to the humans. You know, just the humans on this planet. And if you're not a human, whatever you identify with, cool. We'll work with extra. Hey, I just want to see everybody win.
Right. Right.
Whatever form you in, hey, we're all here together. Right.
But
so
two pieces I want to throw in real quick.
Go for it, Michael.
First of all, let's remove this idea of the quick fix. You got a lot of people in the self-help industry.
Now, why you got to go mess it up for us, Michael? I thought it was just a swipe, and we was come on, man.
We want this quick fix, but we have to understand. It is my belief that the universe is perfect, and when we begin this journey, the universe will support us along the way.
Yes.
But if we think it's just going to be something easy and simple, it's probably not the right journey. So you talked about some of the miracles that occurred for you, Arjuna, and these are the things that will happen when a person simply makes the decision that they want to be transformed.
Yeah.
Because these synchronicities, these I could give you a gazillion different things happen. I cannot explain how they happened. But I knew that if I just trusted my heart and followed that, I was going to be okay. And I grew and I healed along the way. So recognize that on the other side of this is joy. See, as men, we don't talk about this much.
Yeah.
There's a joy that comes from healing that you can't put in words.
Nah.
And as black men, you know, a lot of us, you know, we carry these tough faces, you know, and we, you know, we're rigid. But when we feel that joy, we cannot not smile.
Right.
My friends gave me a nickname. They called me Michael Happy Ass Taylor.
Ain't nothing wrong with that, but I get it.
They call me Michael Happy Ass Taylor. Number one, because of my optimism. But number two is because I'm always smiling. Now, why am I smiling? Because that's what it feels like inside of me.
Yeah.
It's joy. It's happy. But trust me, I've been on the other side. I've been through hell and back.
Yeah. It's like, why not smile? Like, knowing what you've been through, you like,
how can I not smile now? After
Right?
So for the people out there who are listening, know that this joy is available to you.
Yeah.
It's inside of you if
Man.
you're willing to access it.
Yeah, because all the traumas I've experienced, like this is real. Like this excitement, this laughter that you see, the energy, it shows that you can get to the other side. And that's what I really wanted this live to be, is to just more so than what we're saying, is to see someone who has been through that ringer and come out on the other side from the tools and the practices that we're sharing. Right. And that, again, we're addressing manhood, but this could be for just the human being experience.
Absolutely.
Right. This could be just for the human being experience. I saw that, let's see, Season, if I'm saying it right, Season says this really resonates with me right now. Right. And I would love to know what resonates, or if there's a Q&A. Like I said, if anybody has a question pertaining to this, because I know this is one of those topics that aren't so quick to be in the comments, because as you hear what we're sharing, if you know that you're on the other side, which is fine, love that part of yourself too. Welcome that part of you into the space. First of all, say hello. I'm glad you're here too. If you're in the funk or if you're in the ringer, bring that person to the space. Give them a seat, towel them off, put their feet up on a little Give them a nice cold beverage and say, sit back. Because that's where the work starts, right in that moment. So here we are. You know, welcome. We invite and we welcome that version of you as well. You don't have to be figured out and fixed, right? We're still working, right?
Absolutely.
We're still working. You know, so we encourage that vulnerability because that's where the magic gets to start.
Because here's the thing. Once again, I believe the universe is perfect. And if you're watching this video right now, it's no accident.
That part.
You are here by divine appointment. There's something that brought you here, I guarantee you, to receive a message, and it's up to you to figure out what that message is.
Yeah.
If you're here and you're engaged in the conversation and you know there's something that you want to say or you want to, just drop it in the comment box. You have absolutely nothing to lose and everything to gain.
And I get it. I get it. Sometimes it takes a few love taps, you know. And so that's what I will do.
Right.
I've been on some lives before where it took a few minutes of just, and I get it because some of us, the layers are so deeply ingrained. Uh-oh, here we go. Here we go. I've had people do or say really cruel things to me lately, and I'm tired. Right now, I'm learning how to ask for help, kind people, and be vulnerable. Well, first of all, let me just say, on behalf of those people who, wherever they are, no judgments, but not able to see the light in you because obviously their light is off, I want to apologize, right? On behalf of those individuals. We'll just start there. And now that you've stepped into a safe space with two human beings, we're not even going to put man on it. We're just going to say with two humans, right? Two human beings who are in their heart center, who are speaking from their heart, right? Thank you for showing up. Thank you for trusting us. Thank you for being vulnerable to even show others that are watching right now that this is how it starts, right? This is how it starts. And so by you expressing that, right, just putting that into the space, you get to look at that, right? Now, there are those people that showed up in an unkind fashion. But I want to acknowledge you for the willingness to say, hey, you know what? Even though these other people may have stepped on me in a way that feels not so good, I still have fight in me. I still have the desire. I still have the willpower to get to the other side. So here it is. I've chosen, or like Michael said, I found this divine appointment where I get to prove to myself that was just an experience. That's somebody else's reaction. But that's not my reality, right? We get to look at how when we stand in it, when we stay in it, when we stay the course, regardless of what happens out there, because the only thing we can control is our actions and our reactions to the external forces around us, right? That's all we can do. So we can't control other people. But because you're standing in your truth, because you're standing in this knowing that there's something on the other side, you have now been able to share with us and who's ever watching, who's been here, because I feel like the people that are here are on the same heart frequency. So just receive the love, the acknowledgement, the support in this moment to confirm that what you're doing and your belief is right, that it's supported, that you looking in the mirror, seeing that version of you is loved, seen, heard, and appreciated. And this is proof in real time, right? This is proof in real time. And Michael, if you want to share anything.
Yeah, I just want to say, first of all, they mentioned in the comment that she's a Native woman. So I move to the lineage of Native Americans because there's so much wisdom and strength and power in Native wisdom. So that means that that's inside of you already. And you mentioned that, you're tired of acting like you need to be strong. No, vulnerability is strength. Vulnerability is strength. But you have to understand the importance of being able to set boundaries for yourself. So when unkind people are around you, you have to be able to set the boundaries to not allow them into your space. But never, ever try to pretend that vulnerability is not strength.
Yes.
Because it is. Vulnerability is strength. And again, the native traditions have taught us that for years, how important it is to connect to Mother Earth, how connected it is to be connected to all the elements. And if you have that lineage in you, you have access to divine wisdom to do anything.
Yeah. I mean, I need to be calling you up. You know what I'm saying? If anything, I need to be, hey, hitting you up. Like, when we going to do a live so I can learn, you know? Like, yes. And to say what Michael was saying, I didn't catch that last piece till just now, Michael, till you pointed out it didn't show up it didn't show up in the comment at first. And to speak to that, you know, I know enough, not from the Native American heritage side, not from, you know, Native Indian, I'm sorry, aspect of it, but from being a melanated man aspect of it, the notion that I always have to be strong. I always have to be strong for my people. I always have to, you know, and that can be taxing. It can be taxing on the nervous system. It can be taxing on just the mindset, everything. But as Michael shared, just the culture in itself. You know, when I think of Native, you know, just the culture in itself, for me, it's always represented medicine. It has always represented, for me, it always represented medicine, healing, strength, and courage. So I would even invite you to look at it just from that perspective, right? Just what you embody, right? What you embody comes with such a powerful magnitude of just beingness, right? But sometimes we go through things, we have experiences, relationships, different things happen to us where, you know, the mirror gets a little foggy, you know, and when other people are hurting, you know, the last thing they'll do is tell us the things that we really deserve and desire to hear because they're hurting. And so if you ever read the book, The Four Agreements, you know, we talked about it before. One of them is, and it's a practice, but don't take anything personally.
Yeah.
Right? They don't, just like I didn't know Michael's full extent of the shoes he walked in until I got to meet him. You know, he didn't know mine until we met. That we don't know yours. But that doesn't mean, just because I don't know what you've been through does not discredit, right? Does not discredit what you're capable of, who you are, and where you're headed. Sometimes it's like, in order for that to be validated, we have to know that person. We need to know who you are. First, I need to know all these things about you before I can validate that you're an amazing human being, Michael. Until you tell me your bio, send your bio, and then I can know. The fact that you are here, right? Because this is how I look at it, Michael. The fact that you're here in my space, I know the work that I'm doing on myself. I know the boundaries I've created. I know what I'm calling in. I know what I'm praying for. Lets me know. The fact that you're here lets me know that you have. So there's something called discernment. Lets me know that you have those same attributes, if not better or more.
Or you wouldn't be here.
That simple.
Yeah. You wouldn't be here.
So again, thank you for sharing, Season. The ancestors are so powerful and guiding with grace. Yes, they are. And we got so much. When we really, you know, and one thing that I learned too, it's easy. Well, it seems easy, but we can get caught in the story. And it's just having practices that take us out of the story. Things that can remind us that, hey, this is my story right now. This is my experience, not the story, but this is my experience. Right? This is my experience that I'm having. But just because I'm having this experience, it does not take away all those beautiful reminders and those ancestral truths and powers and lineages that have come with, you know, your birthright. Yeah. Pamela says, healing in unity and vulnerability. Trying to not carry on ancestral pain bodies. Yeah. Okay. Well,
that's our work. especially as Black men. And I'll speak to that because collectively in this country, we think about the pain body that we as a group have carried around for so long.
Yeah.
A lot of us that are still carrying around the defense mechanisms that allowed us to survive.
Yes.
So now we have to move through that, acknowledge the past for what it was, but to realize that it is the past. What's happening in this present moment? Where are we right now? And that's one of the challenges we as Black men have, is being able to be fully present right now, not focusing on what happened, being aware of what's going on in this present moment and how can we heal. And I want to go back to the post from the Native American person. And when I think about Native Americans, the one word that always pops up for me is connection. Native Americans had this connection to everything. Everything. And I say that's divine. And I think ultimately that's what we're striving for. Connection. You know, relationship connections, you know, friendship connections, family connect. It's all about connections. Well, what connection? Connection is from the heart. That's how we connect. We can only connect from the heart.
Yeah.
So when we learn to connect to the heart, then we can connect to others. But it's a process. It's a process of healing, growth, and transformation that we have to commit to.
Yeah. And Season, I'm gonna send you a DM just to follow up with you. And you know, I want to also say, you know, just from sharing what you shared in the space, let us know. Do you feel any type of lightness, right? You know, if you even do a body scan, just in your physical body, just from sharing, because we put it in the space, ask, I need help, right? What happens from there? Then you can take the next step, just from putting that out there. So I just be interested in knowing what's coming up for you. But you know, Michael, I'm not going to keep you too much longer. I know usually I set the timer, so we've done about an hour, probably some change. But if there's any last aha moments, oh, we got something coming in. But if there's any last nuggets of wisdom you want to share, where people can follow you, find you, your work, all that you do, I'd love for you to plug us with that before we get out of here. And so yes, for me it can be a lot to feel such deep of connection, because there is also so much healing needed or happening. So it's a lot to feel at times. Yes.
But stay connected to the feeling. That's where the magic is. Stay connected to the feeling. So yeah, Arjuna, I just want to again acknowledge you for creating this space. As mentioned, there are no accidents. We met by divine appointment, and I'm so glad and proud to be a part of this conversation with you. So again, thank you for inviting me.
Thank you.
And I want to leave for anyone who's watching this is become an optimist. There's so much negativity out there in the media. It's easy to fall victim to this, the world is going to hell in a handbasket mentality. I believe as human beings, we have the capacity to be, to do, to have anything we set our minds to. And so we simply have to choose. We have to make a choice.
Yeah.
Or we're going to listen to our own hearts, or we're going to listen to the media. Trust your own hearts. Know that there is something that you're connected to. You can call it whatever you want to call it. You can call it God, you can call it the universe, higher power, whatever. But there is something that you have access to, which is divine.
Yeah.
When you tap into that part of yourself, you cannot not be optimistic, because you are now connected to the creator of it all. Yeah. And that's what gives you the access to create whatever your heart desires. So become an optimist. Don't believe the hype of the negative media. You have access to do anything you want to do if you set your mind. If you want a little more information about me, you can find me at coachmichaeltaylor.com.
And you know, Michael, and just can I get some love in the comments? Like this brother's energy, right? Like because, you know, some lives, you know, people are very intense and it's got a lot going on, but just the energy alone, it just feels good. It feels safe. It feels like there's wisdom in the building, right? And I'm sure even because the people that have stayed this length of time with us, you know, you can feel it and see the hearts are coming up. And I just want to acknowledge that in you, Michael. You mirror the work, right? You mirror the energetic components of the work as well. Because there's one thing to say I'm doing the work, right? But then energetically you could feel it, right? See, they talking to. Thank you all for mirroring that. And I want to highlight that in you because, you know, my nervous system, I've been through enough, right? So especially when it comes to men.
Yeah.
And so to be able to drop into a space and not just, and think about what we're talking about. We're talking about emotions. We're talking about feelings, the things that are heavy. Sometimes that could trigger you, you know? It's like, so just to be able to go there and still hold a certain frequency speaks volumes, right? It speaks volumes of the inner journey that you went into. And I just want to tell, and for me, what I would like to say closing out is, you know, don't be afraid of the self-inquiry. Ask questions. Ask yourself questions, literally, when certain things come up. Now, one thing I want to say that I've learned too, you can't always believe everything the mind, right? Can't always believe. But one thing I will say is I have a heart exercise that I do where I always put my hand on my heart. Because when I was laying there dying, and I share this a lot in my story, is that my heart never judged me in that moment. It never said, damn, Arjuna, how could you do us like this? What were you thinking, you stupid? My heart continued to do its job while the femoral artery was severed and I was bleeding out. Now, my mind, my mind abandoned me, Michael. My mind was like, hey, bro, you done fucked up. You're on your own. I'm out of here, right? There was no coming back. My mind was like, oh, it's a wrap. We have made the ultimate mistake. You on your own, figure this out. But my heart, so I love talking about the heart power. I got the t-shirts. If you're interested, click the link in my bio. But I have the heart power branded t-shirts that you see in the podcast that I do with you. Because my heart reminded me, hey, I'm what makes that mind work, right? Without me, you have no mind. So listen up. And my heart was beating. And the vibration of feeling my heart beat in my body when I thought I was dying, it reminded me that, hey, hold on. If my heart is showing up of service in this catastrophic moment, I say, hey, hold on, mind, get back here. We got work to do. Like, I'm not even about to let the ego run. Like, wait a second. Like, let's pull all of that together, the ego, everything, and we're gonna fight. Right? And from that point forward, I came to the realization that as much as society says all these things about your heart, the heart knows the way. Yeah. It brought me back. It guided me back to my center. It guided me back to my practice. And so anyone who's tuning in, even now, I always close out with 3 deep breaths, Michael. So just because we did go over some things, we've opened up different emotions, feelings. So I always do a nice deep, I like to call it like a nervous system reset with three deep breaths. But I always put my hand over my heart. Sometimes you can do a gentle massage and tell yourself in this moment. So we'll inhale and just remind yourself. On the inhale, slow, fill up the diaphragm. Hold it and slowly release. Now, as you inhale, just inhale all of the richness, the wonders, the miracles of life. And when you exhale, release all those thoughts and things that no longer serve to the best of your ability. Inhale. Hold it at the top. Exhale. One more. Make this one count. Bring in those miracles. Bring in those I need help miracles that are on the other side. And exhale whatever is blocking you from thinking that it's not okay. Inhale, slow, fill up the diaphragm. Hold it at the top. Exhale it out. Just tell yourself thank you, thank you, thank you. Thank you all. Thank you all for being here. Thank you for taking this time for yourself. Thank you for sharing this time with me and Michael. And if you would like to see me and Michael come back and do another topic or a different conversation, just put in the comments, yes, 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 please. Because, you know, it's by popular demand is how this usually works, a unanimous vote. Because once you've spoken, then we can't make up a good enough story. But, oh, Michael, again, name those books. Can you share with us your books real quick? The name of...
First book, Brothers, Are You Listening? A Success Guide for the 90s. Second book, A New Conversation with Men. Third book was Black Men Rock, 10 Keys to Empower Black Men to Live Extraordinary Lives. Next book was Adversity is Your Greatest Ally, How to Use Life Challenges for Stepping Stones to Live the Life of Your Dreams. Next book was Lessons from a Gathering of Men, How Men's Work is Changing Men's Lives for the Better. Third book was The New Face of Entrepreneurship, An Entrepreneur's Guide to Joy, Passion, and Profits. Next book was Shattering Black Male Stereotypes. The most recent book was The Good News Is the Future is Brighter Than You Think.
Oh, I love how you wrapped it up with that one. And you have a publishing company, if I'm not...
Yes, Creation Publishing, creationpublishing.com.
Okay. Well, there you have it from the coach, master, wisdom extraordinaire himself, Michael Taylor in the building. And wait, Michael Smiley Face?
Happy.
Or Happy?
Michael Happy Ass Taylor.
Yes, yes, there we go. We're going to close out with Michael Happy Ass Taylor. Ain't nothing wrong with being happy, Michael. I hope you keep that. You know, roll that one out. So everybody tuning in, thank you again. If you don't know, if you haven't, you don't follow me, please. And if you love this brother and any of his work and wisdom, want to stay connected, please follow Michael. You know how it works on social media. It's the follow for follows. And
absolutely.
You can always hit us in the DMs if there's anything that you just wanted to take on a private. We respect that as well. And have a beautiful rest of your Friday night, and let that love, joy carry over into your weekend. And we'll be in touch.
My 61st birthday.
Whoa, wait, when? Wait, hold on.
Today.
Oh, wait, family. Wait, we got, hold on. Come on now. Let's give this brother some birthday love. Man, in the comments, please. We got to rock. Happy blessed birthday.
There you go. Appreciate you.
Yeah, hold on. We gonna celebrate you right now. We ain't gonna wait. Yeah, you just slipped that one in on us. Can we get some birthday love for Michael?
There you go. There you go.
Yeah, can we get some birthday love for this brother who took... On his birthday, though, he done took the time to just rock with us. He speaks volume of your character, Michael.
You are my birthday present, man. I appreciate hanging out with you.
Oh, man, you know how to, listen, as men, I'm going to receive that, see, yes. And I'm going to tell you, man, you made me feel good, Mike. You made me feel good. Good. You got me over here smiling now.
Arjuna happy ass.
Yes. Oh, so happy, yes, you got all the happy birthday, Michael. Yeah.
Thank you, everybody. Appreciate you. Love you all.
All right, now, so we'll see you soon. Enjoy the rest of your birthday. I know you got the missus waiting for you. She probably got you set up all nice, so I'm going to let you do your thing, and we'll see you on the next one.
All right, bro. Take care.
All right, peace.